This is Leisha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment podcast. And I am so honoured and excited to welcome to our global community today an individual who has actually been at my Women in Recruitment Leadership event in 2024, I think it was.
It
Yeah.
was.
Oh God, I don't know where time goes. And if you are an avid user of LinkedIn, you will probably already be aware of the incredible value that this CEO and founder provides to our amazing recruitment industry. She's an innovator and she's such a blooming brilliant human being. So without further ado, let me welcome Wendy McDougall, who is the CEO and founder of Firefish. Welcome to you today.
Alicia, I'm privileged to be on your podcast. You're a bit of an icon as well. But yeah, no, thanks for having me. And that's a lovely introduction. So thank you. So for those that don't know me, I am Wendy McDougall, as Alicia said. I'm the CEO or Chief Fish, as I sometimes get referred to as Firefish Software. I'm a recruiter at heart. This is my second or third business, but second one was a recruitment agency myself, which I built and then sold. And then for the last 14 years now, I have been trying to innovate that tech world, which I'm really passionate within the recruitment agency space, and love every minute of it. So that's what Firefish does. We're a CRM recruitment software that really tries to help put data at the heart of your business to tell you what's working and what doesn't, and help you on your way to hopefully running a good profitable recruitment agency that you can scale.
I mean, I've got so much to unpack. I mean, first of all, you must be in the 0.04% of exited founders, and then add on exited female founders. I mean, can I just, first question was that your intention? Did you set out to scale and exit?
Do you know my intention? So my father he was an entrepreneur as well. So I grew up with family business and running a business. So my intention was from a very early age, I knew I was going to run a business. So that was just a fait accompli. I think you always get told to go and start up a business and build it for exit. And actually looking back on my recruitment business, um I wish that wasn't my aim, because actually I missed out on an awful lot of fun. And I
Right.
think that's so I think that's one of my things, in that, recruitment is a really great industry, really good entrepreneurial sort of company, and so everybody that's out there running businesses, can really have a lot of fun with it. And I think we forget that because it's quite stressful as well. So was it my intention to build and exit? No, but actually it was my intention to build. I was an IT recruiter. I love the tech space. I worked with lots of SaaS businesses in the tech world to help them build their business. So I probably always wanted to run a tech business. So it was almost, the recruitment was a sort of an interim to running what I'm doing now.
What an amazing journey. And actually it's been a bit of a contentious topic that I commented on in October.
You've been contentious. No way, Alicia.
Me being contrary, in the fact that I commented on a post by the wonderful Sean Anderson of Hoxo.
Mhm.
He said he was talking around the scale and exit, and I said it was something word for word, something like, it's always fascinated me why, as an industry, we're so obsessed with founders having to scale and exit.
Yeah,
What's wrong with founders having a purpose that doesn't involve actually exiting their business, where it is around that joy? So to actually hear that verbatim from
yeah,
someone that has done it makes me feel like you're the proof in the pudding that it's, if that happens with intention, then that's fantastic. But I think so often I speak to, I mean, obviously my clients are your clients, right? And the
mhm,
listeners are probably, equal.
yeah,
It's leaders and recruiters alike. But there's this kind of, I do use the word obsession, that that's what they should be on as a trajectory.
mhm,
Whereas I think you almost accidentally forget to enjoy, and
yeah,
there's no harm in, you're not taking your eye off the EBITDA, because at the end
yeah,
of the day we all have to make money, right? But it's
yeah.
about creating something. So I actually found that really inspiring, and the
Mhm,
candor is enlightening to hear that from you. And so I actually just want to kind of go back to something you just said, because I think so many people listen to this podcast who, and we do get messages, which is just brilliant, from people who are thinking about starting up on their own. I didn't
mhm,
That was actually quite a big sort of vertical for us in terms of listeners. that you knew it was fait accompli, that you
Yeah.
knew that you were going to set up your own business at some point. So how did you know that? Like, was it because you grew up around it? Like, what made you know that that was the case, as opposed to, I imagine your dad, if he was an entrepreneur, you know the tears that happen, you know the
Mhm.
exhaustion.
Mhm. And he
So,
did not want this for me as well. So we went
right.
through quite a few problems. But I think, after I was, 15 and he'd read at least two business plans already from me, which weren't very good.
I love it.
He was very much, he did the hard work because he didn't get a choice. So he went into family business as a lot of people do in terms of second gen.
Yeah.
They have to, he went in at 16 and that was just his role. So he thought he'd done the hard work to allow me to go and do whatever I wanted to go and do. But I think, ultimately it is in the genes, and if you are brought up around it, you know, don't get me wrong, I've got two younger sisters, totally different, do not want to do it. But for me, it was just something that connected with me and I needed to do it. I just never felt that I would be working with boundaries in front of me and I wanted to crash through them and I didn't, it's sort of, the top biller scenarios, and it's nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm just going to go and make my own rules. So that for me needed to be, for my own business. I think the other thing is, I think it's very important probably to share too, is that a lot of people do know that I'm really badly dyslexic, and that does tend to, like, it back then when I was trying to get a job, I was hiding it. I didn't want anybody to know. I didn't want anyone to read anything. I felt thick constantly, and I didn't want to write, a note. Like, my handwriting would be terrible. So it was easier for me always to be on my own, right, doing it my way, so I didn't have to explain my weaknesses. So I think that also had a lot to do with it as
Well,
well.
it will have underpinned the almost the self-discriminatory language that you'd have
Yeah.
of, because I don't know what generation you grew up in, but I'm guessing this was like pre it being very open and the
Yeah.
diversity was embraced and that we were much more aware of these things.
Yeah, I think I think I got diagnosed like a week before my higher English, which was super helpful.
Oh my God, I mean, this is it. This is it. And I can now look back and think how many girls that I went to school with that probably were dyslexic,
Mm,
autistic,
mm,
most definitely had, or ADHD, for example. So,
mhm.
are you the eldest? ch-
Yes, I am. I'm that stereotype. So yeah.
I'm the eldest of five, Wendy. So
Oh,
I'm making huge swathing assumptions here, everybody, about
yeah.
mode. I actually had a massive shiver down my spine when you were talking about your father, because
Mm,
as you know, my late father was also an entrepreneur, and actually he was very successful for most of his working life, and then he really wasn't in his latter years. And I know that he was the opposite. He had his eye on me to take over his business, and I was just, I was a massive rebel. We didn't have the best relationship. I realize now it's because I was probably very similar to him, and I didn't want to go. He had what was a retail and then became an e-commerce business, and I look back now and think he was actually quite pioneering. But I was like,
yeah.
I'm not working for you. And he's like,
Yeah.
I think he probably just didn't articulate to say, maybe work with me rather than for me.
Mhm.
But anyway, and none of my siblings are
Yeah.
entrepreneurial particularly. So I just knew straight away you were an elder sibling. Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that. And I think, we used to be labeled mavericks, didn't we? With those that were unmanageable. You the top biller, I was the top biller.
Mhm.
You almost, yeah, I can see now as a leader, and I'm sure when you had your own business, you want people like that, because they're the ones that will be fearless and they'll be curious, and they probably will spearhead so many revenue streams for you. But I can imagine it's quite challenging to try and keep them in check in terms of process and compliance and all those other things. There you go. There's the hand of God. I don't know why the lights. So thank you for that, and it's really nice to get to know you on a very different level. So
Mhm.
you talked around, I guess, your desire to move into the software space yourself, having partnered companies yourself. So have you got? I'm just really curious because you've set up a very very successful, respected tech brand. Have you got technology yourself?
So I actually did do my high. That was one thing that Dad did at school, push me into. So I was the only female in a higher tech, the higher IT, and I found my female credentials of being able to get a lot of these very smart guys to do a lot of my homework was very key at that point. So
I
so
love
I
it.
shouldn't really admit it, but you know, when I got to, so I've always loved tech. My dad, again, was very influenced in my life, but you know, he had his whole room was a computer when it first came out and stuff like that. So I would say that I can't code. That's the only thing I probably can't put my hand to in here, but I have a very logical way of looking at things, and I do understand. You know, I've got a good understanding of tech, so and I'm not scared of it. You know, that was one thing of obviously the recruitment gives you such a gift of being able to understand all the different jobs that you recruit for, and just you know batter down any sort of you know barriers to that and really get underneath the skin of it. So it's you know I can't. You know, I was able to do a bit of coding very early on, but you know, thank God that's the only bit they don't let my hands on.
Don't need to. You have people that do that for you. I find it really interesting though, because you know, this year particularly, as we record this in 2025, there's more tech that's ever been available, and
Mhm.
I can only imagine how overwhelming that must feel for those listening who are in the purchasing function, whether it's as you know founders themselves, or maybe they're an MD or whatever it might be, or maybe they're just really curious about the RecTech space. And it must be really hard to, I guess, differentiate yourself, and ensure that it's, you know, you're partnering the right businesses. What are you finding in terms of the buying behaviors of leaders right now? Like, where do you think we're at as we, you know, we're fast forwarding, aren't we? We're just moving at such velocity now when it comes to knowing that tech is vital. I mean, we don't need another episode to say why it's important. We know it's really
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
So what would you say buying behaviors are like right now?
I'm confused, and quite rightly so. You know, so you hit the nail on the head there with that one. I mean, it's interesting. When I first came into it, I would say that the recruitment tech industry was like 10 years behind everything else.
Yeah.
Actually, to be fair, and you know, I was on a sort of, you know, come on, we can do this better. I've seen what the other tech is doing. We've come through the evolution of that, but in the middle, we kind of got lost with actually working out what we want as an industry.
Yes.
So unfortunately, you know, we're the recruitment leaders generally, and you know, I hopefully I can say this because I was one as well. At that point, you know, you're not very good at buying stuff, right? Because you haven't actually worked out what you want. You know, my ideal client is somebody that actually understands what challenges they've got and what they're trying to fix with the tech. That's the best thing. Unfortunately, as an industry, we tend to be sort of a wee bit magpies and we like shiny stuff. But
Oh my,
right now,
totally.
you can't get enough shiny stuff because you know it's like because AI is now allowing tech to be developed so much quicker, lots of different solutions really quickly. You know, it's almost like the dot com boom again. We're having that again and going through that period with AI. So it just needs to settle down. I would say that the industry is absolutely, you know, caught up with what we are able to offer as tech vendors, which is great. But you know, that overwhelming sense of, you know, you can have a bit of tech for anything and everything in your business it is a lot for a recruitment leader. You know, and as a tech vendor, I think everybody finds it quite surprisingly, but you know, surprising when I turned around and I said, you know, I actually think tech has overly complicated our world in the last 10 to 15 years. We've got to get back to right now, more than ever, do what we used to do in terms of good recruitment practices, and then enable the sort of the mechanics behind with the tech that can actually just make us much more productive. But
Yeah.
we've got to get that human and tech balance rather than just trying to automate everything for the sake of automating.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more, actually. That's really insightful. So we mentioned earlier on in the intro around data,
Yeah,
and why
love data.
I love data as well. And I genuinely love talking about it. And I think I always have, which is really interesting because I'm actually the
Mm.
opposite to you. I'm not very logical at all. I'm an intuitive kind of like that. But when it comes to commenting on statistics or knowing what underpins the ratios in my business to make myself more productive, it's always been around the data. And I think, you
Yeah.
know, you as a tech leader and obviously having run a recruitment business as well, you know, what are the key data points that you think, and this is, I know, I realize it's quite generic, but generally speaking, what should founders be focusing on when it comes to understanding data?
Yeah. So I think there's no surprise that, you know, recruitment leaders have grown up with KPIs in the background from your recruitment process. So I'm sure everybody out there is absolutely all over the fact of how many CVs to how many ratios to how many placements, etc. That's like where we've grown up as an industry. But the actual stats around what we should be looking at now are much wider, and we probably I'm not sure there's been as much engagement there as there should be. So just now, if you think about it in the last 2 years, all the job boards, LinkedIn, everybody else, have all upped their cost, right? So actually, if you start to think about it a little bit more as a SaaS business does, software as a service, which is what we are, providing it as a monthly basis, actually your cost to acquire candidates, your re-engagement of your assets, and the actual sort of levels of engaged data that is in your database as well, those are ones that we have been really putting our metrics around, and that's what we look at as the return on investment for Firefish, because we know that we can simplify all your acquisition channels of clients and candidates, so bring that cost down. Now, a lot of people don't actually even know what that cost is, right? So that's a good starting
It
point.
is a good starting point, and it's a question I've started to ask this year, and I would say
Mhm.
1% of my clients have been able to answer it, as in nobody.
Yeah,
Nobody's known what it is.
yeah.
So how do they work it out?
So, well, you've got original source and you've got source today. So you've
Yeah.
got to have, that's one thing that we were quite early on, we built in as well, because essentially you'll have original source and then the number of times that you are actually then re-engaging. So actually, if you think about the terminology from a candidate's point of view, I'm just going to do it as a candidate because it's
Yes.
easier.
Yeah.
You have channels of where that candidate was getting either re-engaged or coming in. You have new candidates, which is your original source. So what original sources are giving you the best sort of level of candidates? So how do you rate that level of candidates? Well, it's not just by putting out, it could be matching with talent pools, matching with client lists. How valuable is that candidate to you in comparison to somebody that you've never ever been able to place before in your life, right? That's a stat. And then you've got your actual, cost to acquire, which is the easy one to go to, where, you're constantly just buying credits of job boards and you're getting sort of candidates coming back in. So, that is an easy one of, per click, per cost. But that's only taking it for one particular job. That's not looking at the value of your asset, which is your data and your candidate sort of levels of source that you're actually contributing into that. Because you've got other things like, right now, very big movement is to get back face to face with clients and candidates as well. So, what's the value of going to an in-person event, right? Start to look at that too. What's the value of all these things that we've just never been able to actually look at in that way?
Yeah, no, that's real. I'm really glad we covered that because I think everything you've said there, that's where, for me, the cost of acquisition, but it's about how you go about it. And there's just much
Mhm.
more ways of doing it because otherwise you're just going to be spamming people
Yeah.
and not getting any ROI on it. So I think
Yeah.
more and more people should be measuring that. And I'm really pleased that we
The,
covered that.
the easiest output on that one, just to finish up, is we go in and it's without getting into the nitty gritties of how we do it. 'Cause, the easiest one is how much are you spending on that, and
Yeah,
how much after a year of Firefish we take that down, and we're guaranteeing like you will absolutely be able to take 50% out of that cost base,
yeah.
and we generally are taking an awful lot more than that.
Wow. Okay. And I don't suppose the government changes helped at all in terms of cost of anything these days.
Correct.
But we'll leave that there. We're not going
Yeah,
political on this. So it's been a challenging 2025, and I'm
it
guessing
has.
as we
Yeah.
record this, we're probably going to be listening to this at the end of it. And I think just a little pause to say well done for anyone that's traded
That's lovely. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
through it. Wow, we all deserve a break, let me tell
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
What, I guess, summarize what's happened in 2025, and then what are your, I mean, I'm not asking you to be, mystic mega or anything, but from a
Mhm.
prediction point of view, of what are the things that leaders and recruiters alike should be thinking about for the start of 2026 to get themselves launched
Yeah.
successfully?
No, so I absolutely mirror anybody that's kept going, throughout the last 2 years. I'm going to say, well done. It's a known factor that, we can see it, and, we can see it throughout the industry that, you've had on average about 12.5% lost recruiters from the good recruitment companies, per annum. So that's in the last 2 years, that's 25% shrinkage, right? So that's a lot, okay? And then you've also had some really, really good businesses that have been, maybe the founder has been going and doing this for the last sort of 8 to 10 years, great businesses, but they've just run out of steam. So, on average, you've got, whereas we would always see a sort of a recruiter trying to go out on their own, and maybe one in every, well, I'd actually say probably two in every five don't make it past their sort of, they just go, this is too hard in the first year, and go back into either an agency or in-house. Whereas now I think it's actually more up to, you've got sort of definitely 3.5 out of those businesses are not making that through the first 3 years. So there's a natural churn on that. But also the difference here is that you've actually got people just running out of steam with good businesses. So, acknowledging that. So what does that mean? Well, actually, kind of means that, if you get this right and you do the hard work right now and you look at it as an opportunity, then actually, you've got market shrinkage. So you're actually, if where it used to be a very competitive industry, you've got time to really sort of work in those relationships when it comes back. So it will come back. It will come
Yeah.
back differently, but it will come back. And you've got the ability there that, whereas you may be on, a supply list or, you were up against maybe eight, you're probably up against four. So that's a good place to be from a relationship point of view. And the winners will be those ones that have focused on that.
Mm.
Moving into 2026, so we've seen a little bit of, I'm actually just about to video our job flow that we do every month as well. And
Yeah.
we've seen, so you're getting, this is October's, so it'll be slightly later, but in terms of October's just now, September we saw good uplift in terms of placements, due to the number of job upflow uplift that went in July really well. That came through. August was net because it's normally just seasonal. Placements were made in September, and we've seen that sort of continuing okay in this month. It's not been up or down, it's just continued
Got
to be
mine.
okay. Yeah.
Right. Mhm.
And I think, let's face it, and I think this is the challenge. As soon as you get 6 months, you've got some sort of political sort of force that will hit you again, and we're just waiting for the budget now to come out. So whatever happens there, I think that we will have an okay November as well. December and January will then sort of December in particular will shrink down as normal seasonal again, and then January is where are we all feeling about it? What makes this a perfect storm and hard to plan is that we're not just battling with the economy, we're actually battling with AI now as well within all our clients. So all our clients were given the remit at the start of the year, that TA teams had to shrink because they were all going to get automated. So what they've been focusing on just now is trying to demonstrate that recruitment can be done by a machine.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for everybody, and that's why you felt it really hard, that was going to take this year for them to figure out that it can't. Okay, so that's
Bravo.
also bottom line, but they had to go and learn from their mistakes.
Yeah.
So this is also going to give you an opportunity if you've been developing those relationships, because trust is the biggest thing for next year.
Yeah.
Developing and getting that trust. I would say that where we were, maybe like on average, coming up to I need a short list of 5 to 6 to 7 people because the client wanted choice. That's going to come right down. They can get candidates very easily. So next year's always going to be about, listen, you don't even need to like see the CVs. I'll get people in that I've verified, I've trust, and it'll be 2 to 1 ratios, three
Yeah.
to one maximum that we should be doing. And you try and charge more for that as well, because that's the hard work paying down. So that's what will come through, and that we'll have a swap. However, next year we still need the recruitment agencies to do the business transformation that they need to do. Because just now, one of the areas that they could be working on is that they need to understand actually how their business operates, like those KPIs and the metrics, but
Yeah.
they need to look at, right, where can they make the efficiencies?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, when the recruitment market does come back, you're probably still not going to be able to hire all those people that you used to have, right? You're still going to be having to think, how can I achieve more with less?
Yeah.
So actually our industry is still going to sort of, it's not going to expand in terms of number of people
Not going to do a
in the job. It's just
2022
too
on us, thank
expensive.
God. We don't.
It's not,
No.
unfortunately.
No.
Well,
No.
then it was just really hard to get the candidates and
Yeah.
or
No.
the
It was.
talent as well. So
I think I'm the only rectorate that found it very unenjoyable because
yeah,
it was a frenzy and it was not very discerning and it
yeah,
was, fastest fingers first and it was awful. So, I mean, everything that you're surmising there to essentially give those listening an opportunity to really think about what the priorities are as we head towards the end of the year. Because I always think this, towards the end of any year, any fiscal year rather than financial year is a brilliant opportunity to get even closer to your
yeah,
clients, take them for lunch, take them for, pop in with a Christmas present, something like
yeah,
that. But to set you up for a brilliant start, I think January is always one of those months where it's very hard to predict anyway.
yeah,
I always just think put yourself in the psychology of, your candidates. Most people, if they haven't already gone on a quest to find a new job before the end of the year, they're probably going to come back after Christmas going, I'm going to give it a go. So I
yeah,
think that's where, you really can think about, your client relationships, the business transformation. I mean, if you're listening to this and you haven't been doing that, then you
Yeah.
are literally, I'll be very surprised if you're still trading in a year or so. And I think
Yeah.
I can see, I mean, it's interesting that you said 12.5% shrinkage for the last 2 years. I mean,
Well,
um,
25 in the last 2 years, 12
I,
and a half per year. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree with that. When
Hmm.
I was, twice, at least twice a year, I do a proper historical cleanse and I go and have a look at clients and candidates that we've spoken to. And it's quite distressing actually as a
Yeah.
provider to the industry. Obviously, I'm here to, create opportunities for recruitment companies. How many people have fallen by the wayside?
Yeah.
I guess the reason I wanted just to add my two penneth is that from a pastoral perspective, I think it's been really challenging for a lot of people who haven't made it, whether that's running
Hmm.
a company or working as a recruiter. I've seen a massive trend in those that have gone alone and have just found themselves so isolated they've gone back into
Yeah.
employment.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone's journey is individual and everybody's unique. So I often want to talk about this on a podcast because we get comments from people going, I didn't know other people felt like that. You are
Yeah.
not on your own. And I
No,
think
definitely.
I always encourage people. It's one of the reasons that for the women in recruitment leadership, we have really evolved to ensure that we've got solopreneurs.
And what a fantastic network you've built up there. I mean, it was just, listen, I'll be honest, right? Anybody out there listening to me, they know I don't do birds and networks, right? I'm
I know.
sorry, it's not. But when I came over, and I must get to another one as well, it is nothing like that. It's hugely value. And what a brilliant bunch of ladies you've got together as well. And they're all achieving things with purpose. So I loved it. So well
Thank
done.
you. Oh, I'm the second time I'm covered in goosebumps. Yeah, no, we were never going to be pink and fluffy and all that. That was just when we set it
Yeah.
up. It was like we are going to be. This is a commercial, profit focused development community where it's about collaboration. But actually, a large percentage of our members are solopreneurs for the reasons that we've just been talking about. That you feel so isolated.
Yeah.
You only know what you know.
Yeah.
You only
Exactly.
And you don't want to go off what people are saying on LinkedIn because the reality is it's a showboat. It has to be a showboat, which is why I'm often, again, I'm quite contrary that I like to put the vulnerable posts on there and, say how crap it's been or how challenging something's been because that one voice saying that is makes maybe levels out. Although we've just had a record month, it's like, what did you do the month before?
Yeah.
Um, so I think from the sounds of it, we are in for a similar 2026 if you're doing.
Definitely for the first half, right? I don't think it's going. Unfortunately, that's where I would be doing my business plan. Well, that's what I'm doing right now,
Yeah.
actually. You can see my chairs and my pod next to these, and for going through it all, etc. As well. I'm, we've still had growth, and we still will have growth, but it's hard work growth, and I think that's what you're in for another 6 months.
Me too.
And then people will start to understand that the AI sort of storm cloud that's going will actually have leveled out a bit. All these companies are not making money, right? So, it's going to boost and they're
It's the
not
dot
getting
com
invested.
boom. It's
Totally
exactly the
is. Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
It
It
really
totally
is.
is. And the investors are very wary as to what they're doing. If I have to see another, no offense, because we're integrated some good ones, but if I have to see another bloody note taker, AI note taker, wee!
I know, I know.
Everybody's doing the same thing. So that will have to level out a little bit.
Yeah, no, I will look. We might have to get you back on there halfway through 2026 to see if your predictions came true, Wendy.
Oh, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, no, you have. I knew you'd be huge value, and just from I am a bit of a girl fan, as you know.
Yeah.
I mean, that started way before you came to women in recruitment leadership. But you are trailblazing, and your honesty and your candor and your inclusivity has always set you apart. And I think you
Oh,
are
I appreciate that.
absolutely phenomenal, and keep doing all the amazing things that you're doing. So we'll make sure everyone's got links to Firefish if they want to book a demo. Make
Yes,
sure you
fire on.
mention the Recruiters Recruitment podcast, please, because
Yeah,
Wendy will want to know how you came about contacting her. But thank you so much for joining us on the Recruiters Recruitment podcast.
well,